We'll call this meeting of the IT Committee to order. We have 4 out of 5 members present. That makes a quorum. And as we are all remote, we'll do the formality of calling the roll. Alan Baker.
Present.
Mark Clark.
Here.
Bob Hassinger.
I'm here.
And Dave Robbins is here. And maybe Bob Carroll will join us. Maybe not. We may have a fairly brief meeting tonight. As I know Evan is not going to be able to make it, and I don't think William was either. But as always, our first agenda item is public input. We do not seem to have any attendees to provide us with any public input, but if any one of us, here, Mr. Carroll is joining us. Give him an opportunity to get fully connected, and then we'll continue with our agenda. I just got done taking roll. Bob Carroll. Is Bob Carroll present?
Present.
Excellent. And we were just getting into the topic of public input. We do not have any attendees on Zoom. If any one of us has something that would fall into the category of public input, now would be the time to speak. Mr. Hassinger.
Yes, I've been exchanging messages with Will and Natalia about the issues with getting stuff posted, certain types of material posted on the planning board part of the town website. And at some point we need to, I'd like to do something about it. Not on the agenda tonight.
That conceivably could fall under the category of agenda item number 3, which is the town website.
Yeah, okay. So
We'll take that for what it's worth there. With nothing else, agenda item number 2 is an update from the town administrator. And I solicited input from Evan this afternoon, and he basically says there's nothing really noteworthy. They're just continuing to work on the projects we've previously discussed. He did note that the Verkada cameras are now operational. So we've touched on, we've been asking about the cameras, and apparently there's a new set of cameras now that's actually operational. So that's a step forward. Apparently, work is continuing on the Office 365 migration, not yet complete. And outside of that, Evan didn't have anything else he wanted to bring to our attention by way of an update from the town administrator. And William also said that he had nothing that he wanted to bring to our attention, and his portion of this would fall more under the category of the next agenda item, which is the town website. And for whatever it's worth, we can, without having Evan or William here to interact with us on that, if there is anything that we would like to discuss and call to their attention. I know that, just to follow up on your comment earlier, Bob, the last correspondence I was copied on said that William and Natalia were looking to try to find a solution for the problem. They understand what it is. I think it took a while to reach an understanding of what it was that you were trying to point out, Bob.
well, had a lot of going around, and the last I have is sort of like, well, that's what we could do. I'm thinking of the average user coming around, trying to find out what's going on. Planning board in particular tries to make that available. You can find each project, you can click all the buttons on the projects. You already have a little side trip on the way for everybody on the website this kind of a little side trip that you go where you click meetings and agendas, and then they click the agenda for the particular meeting, and then you get a page where you have to click for the agenda for the particular meeting. And that's where you find materials, or you find links to materials. That's already not real good, although supposedly that's the best that Will could get. But then we've received inputs which should be public record and should be available to everybody to see. People have sent photographs and videos, and there's been all kinds of headaches trying to make them available there and cleanly available, so you can click a link. Last thing I got was that I could click a link. Separate from the list of exhibits, there was then another link below that in a different heading about, I guess, stuff that goes with those. And there's a link to a video. When I clicked the link for the video, nothing came up on my screen, but a file landed on my desktop. Now I'm on a Mac, and an older Mac, older version of the operating system, but using Chrome. Now I've never seen that happen. Sometimes, most often you can right click and say, download that. You're looking at the file or a link to it, and you can ask to have it downloaded, but somehow it was magically downloading, and you might not even realize it did it if your desktop looks like mine. That should be simpler, huh?
Yeah, that's built-in features for the OS that you're on, and its interpreter on programs for various file types. And you're absolutely right that for things that there's no player for the file type that's there, and a lot of times obscured links on websites confuse these players because they see that some long string without what the actual file extension is, and it basically will just say to download. And it's not uncommon for people to have the downloads even hidden where they don't even realize it's occurring. That you saw a little bar at the bottom.
Yeah.
There's many times people may not see that occurring, and it's in their downloads folder. So that's default behavior of the OSs, but it's kind of intuitive for this site for sure.
Yeah. Well, it seemed to me that it's a long ways for people to have to go, particularly without any text on the pages to say, what you need to do. But I think that there's I'm not sure if they're as sensitive as I am to the user experience. But in any case, we're not getting to where I would like to see the site be for at least what I look for as a planning board member. So.
Yep. Now I have some similar issues. One thought I have was specifically with respect to videos is, I think from the perspective of a typical user, someone who's not technically into things as we all are, that if there's a video, ideally I would want the user to be able to click on the video link and have the video streamed to the browser.
Yeah,
as opposed to downloaded, and maybe if it's the right format, your computer might happen to be able to recognize the player app for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is like entirely, I'm pretty confident it's entirely due to the obscured file extensions on these things.
.mov.
Yeah, so like if it knew that's a .mov, your web browser likely is going to use whatever the default players for MOV types, but because of the way the site obscures those extensions, it's really complicating matters. So you're 100% correct that this is a problem, and this is kind of one of the things that we caught up to them initially, that we were worried about a negative user experience trying to get this data, and that this is really what the biggest purpose of the site. And it feels like if we can't get this right, then how nice it looks or anything else is secondary to it actually functioning in a way that people can understand it.
Yep,
Yep.
I'm not sure, but I think that probably the most universally recognized file type for a video would be MP4. I know I've had some, I'm pretty sure I've had some experiences when trying to, download something that had a .mov suffix, and at least some browsers didn't understand that and just dropped it into a downloads folder. A .mp4 is perhaps more likely to be recognized as a playable video, but whatever, don't need to, I mean, the point we're trying to make here is that files that can be accessed to the website should be presented in a format that is as universally recognizable as possible by the browser or the operating system.
Right.
For a seamless user experience. Click on it and you see the document.
Yeah, it should just be a embedded video player in the website. Like, that's not a new technology.
Yeah, I wrote the first website for our local access, GCTV, and I had to solve all that, and it worked. I got it to work. That was back in the dark ages. The source of or one of the parts of this problem is the site and the planning board area have places that you can click, and you get a form that you can send a message that becomes, in our case, an input to the record for the case when they're looking at cases. Things we're have hearings and whatnot about. So there's a history of files. If you look in there, you can click, you can send a message. The messages are ending up, I think that Natalia does something. She gets the message as it came in and posts it as one of those exhibits on the project page. You click that and you see the message, but those messages can have attachments, and the attachments weren't clickable. I kept getting steered to Google or whatever disk. I hate it.
Google Drive.
Google Drive, and it would come up and say, basically, you don't have access.
Yeah.
That's not the user experience I'm looking for. It says, and that's where we've gotten down to the because I made such a fuss, or maybe she's going to start doing it all the time. She took the .mov file, which was one of the attachments, and then posted it separately, however she did it, as a separate item. And apparently they were really having struggles with this. So that, anyway, that's the source of what we're dealing with. So anyway, as a planning board member, I'm not satisfied, because my job as a planning board member is to make the planning board work as well as I can, be as open and all that stuff, transparency and service. So unhappy planning board member.
Well, and accessibility too, right? I mean, I think that the ultimate goal of a town website should be that it's accessible to everybody in the town, and it sounds like there's a problem there.
Right. Well, part of this is because we on the planning board push, certainly I push, and I think the others do too, to have all the material available to people. We have, most of our businesses is public hearings. People have a right to come and comment either in writing or in person. They need, and they go on from week to week. And they have a right, everybody has a right to see what all is there and expand on it, or oh, so-and-so answered, the developer answered with this. So I think blah, blah, blah. And that becomes a part of our record. So it's open process, it's actual process. So anyway. Gave us something to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a little beef about just the way the whole, not so much the calendar, don't get me started on that just yet, but just on access to agendas and minutes. There's this very nice agenda center. Click on that, and then you have to go through a few, if you're looking for agendas for a particular board, what you see when you click on the agenda center is not helpful. Because you have to then go in, there's one of two ways, and actually the second way is sort of become my preferred way. But the first way, going to the agenda center, you have to start out by clicking in the control where you select which boards you want to look at, and start by deselecting everything. There's a single click you can do that with, and then you can click the one that you want, and then you can bring it up. It's actually slightly faster to skip that. And like if I'm looking for planning board agendas or select board agendas, say, I'll click on that board's page and then click on the link there to take you to the agenda center.
Yeah, I go to the calendar and click the meeting there, which takes me to their page, which takes me to the specific agendas for that board. I'm similar boat that going through the agenda is just not functional.
Yeah, it was not entirely clear to me. I usually on the home page, I click down on the bottom to agendas and minutes, I think it is, whatever it is. And that gets you to that screen where every board and every committee is listed and checked. So that's not what you want. And it turns out that, it turns out that there is a check for all, and if you uncheck it, they all uncheck, and that's the secret to that. And then you can scroll down to planning board or whatever and click in.
Yes. For whatever reason, last fall, one of my comments on that back to William was that a superior approach to that particular page would be to have maybe all of the boards and committees visible, but not expanded. So you would have a relatively short list. You could then find the one, because it's probably slightly faster. If the list is short enough, it's slightly faster to scroll to the board you're looking for and then click on the arrow to expand that board. That fell on deaf ears. And maybe because Civic Plus would have no idea how to do that. A lot of what we see on that website is constrained by what Civic Plus thinks is the right way for user interaction to be done.
Well, yeah, or they haven't thought about the particulars of it and haven't been asked. I don't see a lot of going. Maybe Will is doing that, but going back and saying, "Hey, what about this?" But it's not too clear. I would have expected him to go back about all the different, the MOV.
Yeah.
But if just when I get, maybe it's to open search or somehow you get to where you have all of the boards and committees and they're all checked. If it came up with nobody checked, just do what I do and undo the check on all. Then it would come up and you could just scroll down that list. That's a one line per body.
Yeah.
And, that would be, seemed to me, quite a lot better.
Yeah, because I somehow I have a suspicion that when someone goes to the agenda page, they're not interested in scrolling through all of the agendas for all of the boards and committees. I suspect that generally when you go there, you would be looking for one of two things. Far most likely what you'd be looking for is a specific board or committee. maybe you'd go there looking for all agendas for a particular date, but that's kind of a stretch. So considering why you would go to that page is you're either looking for a specific board or committee, or you want to search all agendas for some keywords. And the search function there works pretty well. The few times I've used it, I haven't found anything to complain about with the search function on that. Provided that there's sufficient text for them to search. But I've just kind of gotten into the habit of, if I'm looking for the agendas for a particular board, I'm going to go to that board's page. That's one click. And then on that page, I'm going to click to the agendas, which will get me to the agenda center with just that board showing, which is what I want.
Yeah, and I discovered a long time ago, I could click on the address line in the browser, select it and drag it to my desktop, and I get an icon that I can click and get back to.
Yeah.
For example, I'm looking at the cable agenda right now, but I just went through this. I clicked the on the home page at the bottom, agendas and minutes, and it brought me to Agenda Center, and it has that however many, 3 columns, 15, at least 15 apiece, all checked, which isn't all that helpful if I do a search. If I click on select a category at the top right, I see the list that you're talking about, Dave.
Yeah.
Which is like, I'd have to scroll through a few hundred to get down to planning board, for example. But if I'm on the agenda center and I just unclick all categories at the top left, then all is well. It's just a little over, it scrolls a bit, and planning board is right there, and I click it, and then I click the magnifying glass, and I'm where I need to be, which an average user might not find too bad.
Yeah.
But all that has been somehow, somewhere, something decides what is checked and what is not at that point that I said it comes up with everybody checked. I'd hope that the product had a way to come up with all categories not checked.
Yep, you might think that, again, this goes back to, I think I've said this before, I'm pretty well convinced that Civic Plus has ideas about user interaction that are very different from mine.
Yeah, but then the point is to push back and work with them to see. Maybe it's something, just maybe it is an option, and just somebody didn't happen to do it. Who knows?
Who knows?
Or something that could be added very easily.
Yeah, and I'm not particularly pleased with how the calendar works on that homepage. I find it a little bit frustrating, but it may be that I haven't really figured out how to use it effectively. Apparently Will did a video on how to use the website, and I haven't taken the time to look at it. Some folks who have said it was pretty good, but I might actually learn something if I do that. As opposed to, again, my idea of user interaction tends to be, you should be able to just look at it and understand what you need to do. You shouldn't have to read a manual to figure out how to use it.
I passed on a link to Will about a link to We Know Where about Information Sense.
Yes.
He had never heard of it. And
That
I'm
doesn't
not
surprise
sure
me.
that, well, I think he needs information about how to do his problem, deal with his problem. Where is I'm looking at the home page. Oh, I see. After we educate him on Information Sense, we should educate him, or maybe the vendors, on above and below the fold. On my
Yep.
on my screen, I see it comes up in my typical browser window. I neatly hold down through under the photograph a row of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 circles, agendas and minutes and so on. And I have no actual clue that there's anything below that. Nothing to
Yep.
me. And I'm not the least bit, well, I want information. Pretty pictures are fine. I'm not sure that picture is from Grafton though.
Yeah.
But now I scroll down and okay, that's not so bad. I can
Yeah, I had commented on that very topic to William back in the fall.
yeah, I think I remember hearing something.
People aren't coming to the website to look at pretty pictures of Grafton or anywhere else. They're coming there for information.
Mhm.
And I also read fairly recently some commentary that suggested that above the fold versus below the fold is less important now because people tend to be more used to scrolling. But I don't think that means ignore it. I think that still means the most useful information should be at the top of the page. But again, those comments seem to fall on deaf ears. Somebody has different ideas about user interactions than I do, and some of us do. Although I guess we can, we can keep hammering away at it, and eventually maybe something will get through. I don't
I think
know.
a lot has to do with the responsive site and the responsive nature of it and people that are viewing it on tablets and phones.
That brings me to an observation I made, which I haven't really given this feedback to anybody, but it's related to the design, responsive design. And for the bylaw study committee, we put up there basically a table of bylaw articles and updates to them. And that table looks fine almost anywhere except on a phone. On my phone, the responsive design basically stretches the table out so it's like one cell per row. So the table, you scroll and scroll and scroll, eventually you see the whole thing. But the responsive design doesn't do well with that table. And I don't know if there's a way to do those tables better, if they're just fundamentally not really compatible with small screens. But I noticed that someone was complaining they couldn't find anything there. And I looked at that on my phone and that looks strange. And yeah, it's an artifact of responsive design.
Yeah, the other thing that I don't know if it's Bob, you brought it up, or David. Like in these banner, the art they have in the background is like these mountains, and none of these are Grafton. So it's like, it's, I don't know where they got and shopped all this collateral for these things, but
Probably the same they use for every town.
exactly, but I don't know, it's just as far as the craftsmanship, right? And the professionalism, it doesn't speak well, if you have mountains that everyone can tell are in New Hampshire somewhere, or the Adirondacks for Grafton. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, we were told, or I was told at one point that back before the website went live, that we know some of these pictures aren't Grafton, but we're gonna replace them so that all the pictures are Grafton. And
I seem to recall that too, David.
Yeah, there was a comment about that. And some of the pictures are Grafton, but it's like one is Grafton and then 3 are not.
Dave, what was the process that you used to get that table into the site? How, file kind?
I sent the table. I sent the table in probably a Word document to William, and how how William translated that into a table on the website, I don't know.
Because I don't even know who is handling the stuff. That's always been a problem. Who do you go to if you're the random board or committee? I guess you go to William.
Yeah, I think by default you go to William. As you know, Bob, Natalia handles the planning board stuff. The town clerk's office handles some stuff that they're responsible for. I don't know who else has their fingers in that pie. William is probably the point person for most things to do with the website.
Yeah, but William can't be perpetual production.
Well, no, I mean, he can't be a full-time webmaster. He's got other jobs to do.
Well, even I'm saying, you know, a full-time Natalia,
Yeah.
the person whose job it is to receive everything and put it up, since this doesn't, unlike the website I did for cable, the players put stuff up on it through they did stuff that came by me and I put it up actually, but
Yeah,
back in the day, what was it called? Anyway, I think it was an Adobe. I can't remember which. I don't remember the name. Used it enough.
yeah, I don't remember it. I remember there have been one or probably more than one Adobe product that did websites. Dreamweaver, I think, was one of them. But
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not even sure. I've never used one.
Yeah.
Front page.
Which one?
Front page was the Microsoft one.
No. Now I use Dreamweaver a lot, but this may have been Contribute. The idea was that there was, you know, page prototype pages,
Yeah,
templates, and the people down at the studio had one level of access. They could open it and they could put stuff in. And they had some ability to move stuff around, and then they just click send, and it come by me here, and I look at them and make sure they were okay and make sure they got up right, which worked out pretty well. You know, source of information, either that or they send me everything for the website, and that was in a lot closer to raw HTML and so on than we seem to work with today.
yeah. No,
Well, their editor was, you know, visual and
Yeah.
a little like Dreamweaver, or maybe it is Dreamweaver. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think they're, yeah, I've had no reason to pay much attention to. I'm sure there's probably an almost unlimited number of services and applications that will build and maintain websites for you.
Well, there's a lot now offered up by people who are selling you the website service.
Yeah,
Oh, well, I don't know. I keep seeing ads for them. We're wonderful. We have all these different websites. Pick one, put your stuff in, you know, pretty it up for you. But it's part of selling a service to
Yeah.
host the website.
I think to a significant degree, I think that's what Civic Plus is they, they built the framework and a lot of the the stuff that you can put together and tailor to what you want. And I don't think, I know I've never really gotten into see the details of how you interact with Civic Plus to build and maintain your website.
Yeah, and I'd be interested in that too. But I'd be interested to know how Google Drive got in the picture.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I know this is based upon a little bit of an interaction with school committee documents. The school committee seems to put a lot of documents up on Google Drive, and then they'll send out links to that. And occasionally when I'm trying to access a Google document from Google Drive, it will tell me I don't have permission, and don't know if I've ever understood. In some cases, if I log into my Google account, I can access it, but if I'm accessing it anonymously, it won't. Other times, I think in at least one case, I've had to ask someone to give me permission to view the document. I don't remember just what that was. But yeah, Google Drive, a nice idea in principle, but I'm not quite sure that everybody knows how to manage it so that ordinary people can effectively have access to documents that are stored there.
Well, so Google Drive is ideally used for collaboration, for sharing common files with a team, with groups of users, things that are easily assigned permissions. What it is not is a content delivery system for content being provided from a website. And it's really not, like, using it for that is just trying to, you're trying to reinvent the wheel a little bit by using something that has a lot of hurdles in a way in order to provide that content to the users.
I think it's kind of a square peg round hole situation.
Yep.
I've had some success sharing documents via Dropbox, which is easier in the sense that you can create a link to one of your Dropbox documents and other people can access it without without there being permissions issues. But ideally, document delivery like that, large serving of large documents from the town website, ideally should be done from within the website somehow.
So I would go a step further, and from a data retention standpoint,
Yes,
like I by default have requirements that there's no sensitive data, there's no critical data that is stored in outside Drive repositories such as Google Drive or Dropbox or Box or OneDrive or any of these other ones that are out there. And there's multiple reasons for it, but one of the biggest reasons for it is that it's not a permanent
Yes.
record that's backed up by the town. And so if these
Correct.
are town documents that are supposed to be kept for X amount of time, and it's a link to a Google Drive or Dropbox or such, there's nothing that says that someone can't go in later and delete that file. And there goes your town documentation. Really, everything that is official town documentation should be stored in a repository that has a data retention backup and retention policy towards what the time of retention is for that documentation. And so I'm not sure what the best way is to approach that, but I think beyond just the user experience hurdles for trying to utilize getting stuff out of Google Drive, there's actual content retention issues here by people using whatever they feel like to store official documents.
yeah, right. I was trying to get to that part of it too. This planning board stuff, those I don't know, collections of pages, whatever, the case file, all with all the exhibits and so on, wants to stay around basically forever, because people want to be able to go back, or people should be able to go back, including planning board members, and look at what was the final decision on that, what conditions are on that permit, so that I can tell whether there's an issue with it. It's very helpful. Or we used to have more online in the old system, but yeah.
Yeah, and this gets to be very messy too, if God forbid there's litigation, right? And then you have to do discovery, and you have they have a lit hold, right? So that means everything needs to be locked down, and you need to have control, kind of to Alan's point, right? And you need to know where everything is and have that control, because that's a legal requirement. And everything you guys are saying kind of keeps coming back to one of my hot buttons, which is policies and standards, right? There needs to be policies that lay this all out, and then standards and SOPs and playbooks or whatever we need to create to make sure and ensure that those policies are reinforced.
Yeah, right now, Dave and I know about a situation where there is a discovery.
Indeed.
In an appeal of a case
Okay,
that we are familiar with.
yeah.
And they're discovering all
And the other thing with the,
documentation, and it goes back, the case goes back to town planners.
right, the other thing is what you guys are doing to Google. Google Drive, Google Workspace, you know, all the school uses Chromebooks and Chrome OS and Android, there's no concept of local storage, so everything is in the
Yes.
cloud. So all their files, all their Word, I mean, they have to access all that through all the, you know, GDocs or presentation or Google Sheets, you know, and the app lives, you know, in the cloud, right? And along with everything else. So, and Google's world is access everything through their Chrome browser, because then they've captured you.
Yeah, so Dave, I think that maybe we have a subject to have a conversation in somewhat more depth with Will about.
Yep, there was, I just noticed, I'm not sure, it was just posted. A Q&A from one of our public attendees pointing us to the Town of Hopkinton webpage, suggesting that that may be an example of some of the user interface things we've been complaining about. So we'll keep that in mind as a reference. I think I've probably visited the Hopkinton webpage once or twice, but for a specific purpose, so I didn't really leave an overall impression with me. But yeah, any examples of other web pages that do things better than we do?
Is this one saying that Hopkinton is better?
Yes, that's the impression.
Mhm.
Okay, and is Hopkinton, what is, I guess we would like to know, what is Hopkinton using for?
It looks like it's Civic Plus. It's the same shell, the same, but it's but it is, oh, this is powered by Revise, the government website experts. It looks, I mean, very similar, but it's different, I guess, company. But the page itself is similar, but it just handles the data so much more smoothly, seamlessly.
Of course, we heard that the choice was at least of vendors was at least partly based on cost.
As always.
Maybe better, cost more.
Yeah, it's not universally true, but it tends to be true that you get what you pay for.
Yeah, so anyway, I move we beat up on Will
All right.
about this at our earliest convenience.
Yes, I think, have we kind of beat this to death for now?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, this is a little bit of
I
preaching
think so.
choir here. I think that, I think for the most part, there's some variations of our feelings, but we all kind of have a similar theme to it. And they're really, the issue is trying to get traction inside for Evan or Will as far as feedback on why some of these things are bad.
well, that's our
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, and I think we just need to understand what's possible, right? Because like if the limiting factor is that our consulting hours with Civic Plus are done and there's no budget to do anymore, then maybe our hands are tied right now and there's no point in talking about it until we do have some budget, just to make it them aware that there's things that probably should be changed about the website to make it more accessible. When we
Yeah,
have the opportunity to do that, right?
I think it's worthwhile pointing out to the powers that be of some improvements that could be made. Understanding that it's probably not going to change overnight, but you know, if they know of things that need to be improved, hopefully they can find the resources at some point to make the improvements.
I
Yeah,
wonder,
and maybe the first step to that is just making a list of all of the things, right? And then prioritizing them, and then they can just start to see, hey, oh, we have, you know, 5 high priority items that have been asked for.
Yep.
And, maybe that's a driving factor to funding that type of work.
Yeah, I think there's sort of a combination of items that should be prioritized and items that are easy / inexpensive to do versus difficult / expensive to do. So you kind of sometimes a lower priority thing is also a low hanging fruit. You can take care of it. But yeah, I think that's the right idea is, we can identify, here are some issues that need to be resolved or things that need to be improved. And, we at least see this as a high priority versus a low priority or somewhere in between. And yeah, maybe we can put some of that together and hand it off to the powers that be.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if we could have the opportunity to be a bit more actively involved and, make contributions. That's technically, for anybody who has some background in this sort of thing.
Mm.
Yeah. That requires, getting access and getting information that they have about how it works and all that.
Yeah, I see Bob Carroll has his hand up.
Yes, sir. When you spoke to Evan, did we get any updates on Vadar?
No, I didn't get anything from Vadar for this meeting. He didn't mention Vadar as something he wanted to bring to our attention, or I didn't ask him specifically how it was going.
Yeah, because we haven't heard about that in a while, right?
Yeah, my impression from various conversations over the last 2 or 3 months is that basically the accounting system with Vadar is, for the most part, at least running pretty smoothly. As we may recall, they changed or restructured the chart of accounts, and what that has what may still be somewhat of an ongoing issue with that, I'm not sure the extent to which they resolved it, is mapping the old accounts onto the new ones. So for the purpose of having consistent historical data. Yeah. And that also feeds into mapping it onto the ClearGov budgeting platform and presentation platform. I'm not sure that they've completed that to their satisfaction as of yet. But it's like I said, it seems, my impression is this, it was mainly an issue of mapping between the old and the new chart of accounts to get some consistency in reporting both historical accounting data and budget data through ClearGov.
Okay.
But that's probably worth asking specifically for our next meeting to, well, how's things going with Vadar and ClearGov?
Right.
Okay. If there's nothing more on that, our next agenda item is to review and approve previous meeting minutes. And I'm not sure we have any.
Yeah, I was not
We
here
have not.
last. Yeah, I was not here last month, and there wasn't any sent out for this.
Yep. For the last meeting, we did record the video of that, if you wanted to review that, because I didn't take a lot of notes.
All right, I'll go and I'll rewatch the video and put together minutes from that. That's fine.
Yep, I've kind of gotten out of the habit of taking fairly detailed notes of these meetings.
No, it's fine. I can do that. I'll pull that video up to watch and record.
And of course, this one is being recorded as well. So between the notes you're taking and your ability to review the video, of course, that requires, Alan, for you to actually have some free time to do that work.
No, I'm actually good for tonight. I have several pages of minutes for tonight. I'm all right for tonight. I'll take care of watching the video for last month. I'll squeeze an hour or so in here somewhere or another.
Yep, I know you know, you have to pay more attention to your paid job than you do to this, but this is
Really?
what you can.
Yeah, if you record it on Google Meet, it transcribes it for you.
Actually, there are subtitles on
On Zoom, yeah, it'll
Zoom.
automatically generate.
Hmm?
I think there's just a button you can push to turn it on, right?
I think so.
Mm.
It depends. You know, when you've got live cable cast, then there's one thing going on, and when you send up the video to YouTube, then there's another thing going on. But it's there if you are determined enough to find it.
It's all right. I'll make do with the video. It gives me something to do between like 1 AM and 4 AM.
Yeah,
Probably not too much interruption during that time.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
yeah.
Well,
With that,
but we don't have any executive session, do we?
no, the agenda always, I've always listed possible executive session on the agenda.
Yes.
You know, following up on a suggestion from, you know, some months ago, just in case somebody has something to bring up that might deserve an executive session. But no, there's nothing nothing in my mind, nothing I'm aware of.
Yeah, I guess you have to, or you really should, put the possibility of an executive session on the open agenda.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered about that.
Yeah, we talked about that a while back. The issue is that there may be certain discussions that come up that either comprise a known security risk, security vulnerability, security exploit or malicious attack, or something that really should be put in executive session until the time that it can be made public.
Right.
Yeah, or contract renegotiation information also.
Right.
So.
The planning board and some of our other stuff has more of that. My point is just the necessity to say you have an executive session, or you could have an executive session on your open agenda. Whether that's a required element, but as long as people don't mind, and as long as we can put it up as a maybe, that's fine.
Yeah.
So Dave's been doing that every month. He's been putting in the
Yes.
minutes, possible executive session to discuss those type of things. So.
Yeah, and I think I'm remembering the same thing you were, Alan, that a number of meetings back, we discussed that and decided that's probably a good idea for us to have as a placeholder, just in case something pops up that needs it.
Yeah, and I remember that like the only executive sessions that that we've had, I believe the information from it ended up like a year, like with several months later, we ended up putting them into public minutes once the contract negotiation was done, or there was something to do with remediation of Windows 8 servers. Also that was wrapped up. So
Yeah, that's, you know, the only recent executive session I can remember was it was shortly after, you know, Evan came on and got the new IT contractor in, and there were a lot of issues that Evan felt we needed to discuss in executive session. And it was about a year later that we decided to release those executive session minutes.
yeah, I knew it was a while after that. It was after everything that was concern had been mitigated or resolved at
Yep.
that point. So it no longer was a security issue. But I think it's fine the way you've been doing it myself.
Yep.
The thing is that somebody complained at me on one of my bodies that the agenda said there was an executive session. And you know, I can't find anything or whatever, because there wasn't any. But as you know, with the kind of thing Dave has, that's fine. I wonder in some cases if we hear about exposures, whether or how long you have to wait, and you have to be careful before you release any minutes that explain, you know, that spell out what it was. But maybe we'll cover that if it ever happens.
Yeah.
All right, how about if I move to adjourn?
I think the chair would be delighted to recognize that motion.
Please do.
Seconded.
Second,
Moved and seconded that this meeting be adjourned. All those in favor, Mr. Carroll,
I.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Baker,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
Aye.
Mr. Robbins votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. This meeting is adjourned.